Hey guys, pod sponsor Roback wanted me to let you know about their new Q-Zip. It is badass. It's called the North State Q-Zip. It's got NC State red, a little black collar on the inside, and a little shadow design, North Carolina on it as a little pattern. It is sharp. Y'all should check it out. Remember, you can use code red and white at roback.com to get 20% off your first order. If it's not your first order, just use a different email address or, the old Gmail hack by putting the plus after your name. So your email plus whatever at Gmail, and it will create a new email address for you. But check it out. It's really slick. It's really good looking. I expect a lot of y'all will rock that to the NC State games, but not the blackout game this week. So check it out. Roback.com, red, white for 20% off. Thanks for listening. All right, folks, we are back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I'm your host, Evan, here with Will. Yeah, I apologize for the late upload this week. I have been in the Ozarks looking for the cartel, and I am back. True, I've been in the Ozarks.
Yeah, the second
no
part
cartel.
wasn't, though.
No, it's true. I was playing golf. If you ever get a chance to go to Big Cedar in Missouri, go. It is phenomenal. The golf courses are like, imagine you're at the Blue Ridge Mountains, because it's a very similar landscape, and you're just playing across the top of the mountains. It was wild. So much fun.
That's cool. Sounds like a lot of lost balls for the normal golfer.
No, the fairways are like 75 to 100 yards wide. Absolutely perfectly manicured. I mean, it was gorgeous. I have a bunch of pictures I need to share. I just hadn't gotten off of my phone yet. But
Well, I might need to call them and talk to them about this this lawn management, because I'm trying to reseed my yard. So
it was immaculate. I was laying on the ground at one point, just like, this is better than my carpet at home.
You're a sick puppy. You're a sick
It was
puppy.
so nice. It was so nice. Highly recommend it.
What was the weather
Some
like while
sick
you were out
tracks.
there?
It was hot. It was surprisingly hot. It was 85 the first 2 days, and then it slowly got a little cooler in the mid-70s. We got rained on one day. But anyway, highly recommend it. I heard a bunch of stuff went down at NC State land. I was
Some stuff.
watching the pod chat blow up, and I tried to go back and read, so I have zero preparation for this, other than the fact that MJ Morris is now our starting quarterback. I know that much. And what did I miss this week, Will? Catch me up.
I mean, was there anything else that matters? The decision was made. I don't think a lot of people were paying attention, but Dylan McMahon being back was also a big factor. I do feel like, I wonder if they would have sacrificed BA for one more week if they knew that the center of the offensive line wasn't going to get anchored down a little bit, because the last 2 weeks, it was very obvious during the UVA and Louisville games that Cooper and the guards had no idea what they were doing from a protection standpoint. It was just blitz after blitz just kept getting home, and sometimes it wasn't even a blitz. Sometimes it was just basic stunts, and so I think that was probably flew under the radar for most people because everyone was focused on MJ, but I kind of think the two went hand in hand. Trying to think if anything else really major happened beyond that. Keon Lassane is still listed as a starter, so not all things have changed yet, unless it's just a token start. I think everyone. It's really funny. People are like, well, what's to stop people from chanting for Lex Thomas next? And I was like, I don't think anyone in the fan base even knows who Lex Thomas is. You know what I mean?
A few message boards, folks. Yeah.
But maybe we'll start here. Don't you think it's just weird that everyone acted like MJ Morris, if he hadn't gotten injured last year, wouldn't have been the starting quarterback this year? They
That's
just
the part I don't.
acted like it never existed.
Yeah, you mentioned that before, and I was thinking that's a good point. I know it was to probably say, well, he got it by injury, he got it by default, but he still was pretty serviceable right? For a freshman quarterback. I mean, he had his ups and downs, and he was hurt, and they, still had Tim Beck doing Tim Beck things.
Tim Beck,
I don't know. Like, it was weird. And, in hindsight's 2020, and we're guilty of it too. We trashed Brandon Armstrong for a long time when he was at Virginia, and then he flips to us and like, yeah, it's gonna be great. And it turns out that like that 21 season was more of an anomaly. I think it's looking like that. It's still, and this is way off track from where we were going, but it still boggles my mind that they didn't address the offensive line. Like, how do they see this all spring and summer and say we're only going to bring in one portal guy? I don't know. I think that's weird.
Yeah, I was listening to something, I can't remember what it was, and they were talking about how basically after spring practice, Jeff Brom was like, this offensive line sucks, and they went out and got guys through the portal. It's kind of the same thing for us. There seems to be, I don't know, man. I always feel like Dabo and Doran are actually way closer in personality and management style than maybe folks realize, but like there's like a really big emphasis on I don't know if Cover 3 came up with this, but the OKGs, the our kind of guys, and, holding on to guys or refusing to replace guys because they meet a culture standard that isn't necessarily backed up by a talent standard.
Right.
And I think if you just go back and look at it, like the interior line play has been kind of questionable the last few seasons, and like the argument was, Dylan McMahon is having to play out of position because he's technically a center and he's playing guard, and so he'll get shifted over. And then they probably thought they were going to have Zavala back, and then that, got denied. And then it just felt like instead of doing the right thing at that point and being like, well, shit, we better go to the portal and get some guys, I feel like it was almost like they were afraid to do that. Like it would send some message to the offensive line guys, or maybe they thought it would impact them from recruiting, but it just seems like it's so glaringly obvious. And maybe if like they just were honest with themselves and with the players, like I just still feel like there's like 5 or 6 guys this offseason that you could just say, like, guys, like you just, I know you've been here for a long time and you've been grinding with us, but you should have moved on by now. And like the Jordan Houston one's the most aggravating, I think, because you're down a scholarship now, you're down a running back, and that guy realistically after like 2 or 3 years, last 2-3 years, you should have realistically been able to say, this guy is just not cutting it for us. And that conversation could have been had at other spots, especially the O-line.
So going back to MJ, do you think this fixes the offense?
Yep, we're going to be unstoppable now.
8-1, Charlotte. Here we go. Let's go.
Well, I think it's twofold, right? I think again, I thought the offensive line looked fine the first. Hold on a sec. Let's see here. Was it game and a half? No, 2 games because we had Notre Dame for the second game, right? So I think having McMahon back should make the offensive line a little bit more cohesive and eliminate the like 10 straight like quarterback demolishing shots that we had the last 2 games. I think the passing game is going to be better, and it's really just a question of can MJ replicate anywhere close to the amount of ground game that Armstrong did? Because if he can, I think the offense actually does improve at that point, because I think he is definitely a more decisive passer, and probably a more accurate passer.
Yeah, I think his decision making is what stands out to me. He showed the ability to take risks, but calculated risks. I think when he came in last year, which is, I think we got everybody excited because, hey, look, we actually, he actually threw it down the field, whereas Leary would tend to, tuck it and throw an out or throw a, check down or something if he didn't like what he see. And MJ's a little bit more green and just like, I'm gonna sling this bitch and we'll throw it down the field, right?
And they'd be catchable down the field balls,
right? Yeah,
like,
good balls down the field, like
yeah,
not.
He had a tendency
passes.
to kind of actually underthrow them a little bit, which is fine if you've got guys that are going to jump up and catch the ball. I felt like the problem with Devin Leary was always his deep shots. Almost all of them were overthrows. And so, we just never really had an opportunity to get those field flippers. I mean, go back and look at that Louisville game. Those were a bunch of underthrown deep balls. It's not like they were just like perfectly thrown deep balls that hit guys in stride. And like you don't need that at this level. So I think he definitely has that willingness. He definitely likes to throw over the middle of the field. So I think KC is going to eat this week for sure. The other thing
let me ask you this. Let me interrupt you. That leads me to my next question. Who's going to benefit the most from this? Like, which individual player, coach, whatever. Who's going to benefit the most from putting MJ in?
Well, I think the obvious candidates would be KC because he likes to, like I was saying, he likes to throw those middle intermediate throws of the field. And then Timmons seems like kind of a no-brainer. They already had him kind of coming back into the lineup last week, so I expect that connection to be there. And then, probably, I would guess Rosner. Like, I can't really remember. I remember we targeted Penix a couple times during MJ, during his little run, but then he also, became a one-armed tight end, I think, in the second or third game. So maybe he also gets the benefit. But I think you're going to see us push the ball vertically. So in theory, you'd think that would default to KC, Timmons, and Rosner, but I don't know. The X factor is Lesane. Like, I just don't know if he's gonna keep getting these deeper outside targets that make no sense. Like, is it just me, or does Lesane just not jump vertically? Like, when you watch him go for balls, it's like he never jumps up. I don't know. I just watched a bunch of highlights for MJ, and they were throwing a fade route in the end zone to Lesane, and I was just like, oh, there's that 18-inch vertical there again.
Yeah, I don't. It's not his thing, and they keep trying to use him, which is
wrong position.
More maddening. They use him on the outside. I think it's weird. Can they please? Will someone please ask Dave why Lesane is in the outside receiver spot instead of the inside, where you'd think his size and athleticism and run through contact ability would be used instead of trying to make him a jump ball guy. It just seems like no one asked that direct question, and I think you can ask that question without being mean about it to Lesane. I think you just say, hey, it just really seems odd that Lesane is on the outside. Can you explain why he's there instead of somewhere that seems like a more natural fit? I think and we've talked about this too, the media that covers State in general is scared to ask any questions for whatever reason that may be. The stuff they ask is just ridiculous. I was listening to the pressers this week, and I'm like, I wish I should have wrote them down, but again, I didn't prepare at all for this podcast. But listening to those pressers, I'm thinking, who's asking these questions? Who are these people? And can we ask about, hey, what's the status of, X guy or Y guy, or what are we doing with this stuff people want to hear about? And it's all like, well, how do you feel about, I don't know, some nonsense. And it just...
Do you have compassion?
Not useful for anybody.
Do you have compassion for Brennan? I
that was one of the questions.
Handled that.
Yeah.
Well, the people were like, why didn't they ask about Raphael or McMahon or someone else? And Dave said in his remarks that they were expected back or expected back soon for Raphael, and then McMahon was started. So it's like there's probably some rules or codes of conduct that they ask out of the guys and I ask certain questions.
Dave seems so annoyed with the questions they ask.
Yeah. I just think you need to ask a football coach football questions or ask him to I always thought the thing that it would be nice if they would ask those guys is hey, what's the one little play that a fan probably missed but you thought was really important, and then that gives question. Dave a thought, an ability to kind of think on it, and you could ask that every single week and just be like, hey, weekly, what's the little thing you missed? And I just think good point. Those questions were so tough. Do you have compassion for Brennan? That? Why are you asking a starting quarterback that?
It's like, no, B, I want to play. I got compassion for my game. I'm gonna go. I want to get on the field. It's silly. It's silly questions. You get silly answers, and I just think the whole thing is ridiculous. That every week we always say the same things. Ask him this, ask him that.
Yeah,
but they won't give us a credential. Probably for that reason.
Well, yeah. Probably because you would ask him some question about Randy Woodson, probably.
Yeah, F that guy. Over under 247 yards for MJ Morris.
Like total yards, so I get passing and running?
Passing yards.
You know what? Why not? What was that his average last year?
No, I just made up a number on the spot. That's why I think it's going to be like 250. But
yeah, I'll give it to him. 250 in the air. I think they're going to run it. I think they're going to throw it a lot in this game. Yeah.
Over under 2.5 touchdowns.
Over
I
get
under
rushing
1.5
touchdowns there, don't I?
MJ's rushing touchdowns. Yeah, I'll give you those.
Yeah, I think he's going to get. This could be a 3 touchdown and one from Mims type game.
Optimistic October has struck Will's household.
Well, I need to go back and look at it real quick here, but I mean, Virginia Tech was able to score on Marshall, and Virginia Tech is very bad.
Over under
it's at
1.5
home for us.
interceptions.
What was it?
1.5 interceptions.
It's like, I'll go. Man, if you say over, that's gonna be a fucked up game for us. No, I'll go under there.
Yeah. I'm gonna say about 252 and 1 was my numbers. That's about right.
Well, one of the things that caught my attention, so MJ was saying, as different this year versus last year, he was saying he feels like he processes things about a second faster now, and so I think a lot of the only times where he had really negative plays last year was either he got caught waiting too long, or maybe missing a kind of obvious read right in front of him, with a check down. Mm-hmm. And so I think if he's processing faster, and then Dave said that he's running faster than he was, you have to think it. The way Dave made it sound, it was he told MJ basically, we're going with Brennan because Brennan has more game experience, has more time in the system, and basically we just want to give you time to just come along at your own pace. And so nothing really came across as we're really concerned about MJ or he's got to really work on something. It was more of just it sounds like he's more athletic, he's thinking quicker, and he probably knows this offense at this point. So the way Dave said it was a performance decision, and that's it. And so, I don't know.
He said
it should be better then.
Yeah, he said his quote is, if all things are equal, I'm playing the guy with more, the older guy. That's what he said. And I'm like, well, we kind of know that, Dave, and we kind of know, we've kind of seen what issues that has, have come from that philosophy. So maybe he adjusts that. Here's this is a quote you put in the pod. We've had a good week. We've had good energy. The guys on offense have definitely taken on different things that we've asked them to do. It's a collective healing that needs to take place, and obviously there's a major change at quarterback, but all the positions are involved in this process of getting better. It's been fun to see that. There's been a collective effort. MJ does a great job from an energy standpoint, encouraging people. He always has. The guys around him understand they have to pick up their play for their quarterback as well. I mean, we saw that last year, right? MJ comes in and there's a little jolt of energy. The kids like him, they want to play with him.
Yeah, good attitude.
I expect to see that again with this season. I expect his inexperience to shine a little bit, but yeah, I mean it's a reason for hope again, which is always NC State fans' worst nightmare. But I'm looking forward to seeing it and not watching the football version of diarrhea on the field from an offensive standpoint. It just should be more effective because I just think MJ is just more effective. I don't know if it makes us dramatically better, but I got a feeling it will, just based on what I've seen from Brendan Armstrong in the last few weeks, and I know I've changed my opinion on that one, but the last few weeks have been very indicative of there's some issues there.
I think if you're going to have the offensive line problems we had, you need to be able to just process fast and make the right passing reads, and that's the problem. Is I just don't. I think last year really set him back from a development perspective, and then like I just don't think we did him right. So I think if you had Brennan this week, I think things would probably be fine. I just think Dave didn't want to risk it, and had seen kind of enough, and said like we've got a guy that they probably got more reps in practice last week, is my guess, and so they probably felt that MJ was already showing that he's probably a better version of what they need. So I just think the passing game's probably going to improve. I guess my question is just going to be, is the running game going to keep being like a turd, or does that success passing kind of open things up and make things a little bit easier for Allen or Mims or whomever, insert whatever name you want, right? Can we talk for a second about Phil Dracovic becoming a tight end for Pitt?
I had that in my notes because I'm again scanning the pod chat, looking back on things that I wanted to talk about, and Phil Dracovic going to be a tight end. So the top three quarterbacks in, what was that, 2020 in the ACC were Dracovic, Brennan Armstrong, and Devin Leary.
Crazy. One
just turned to a tight end. One just got benched. And one's at Kentucky beating up on the School of the Blinds and Florida. It's wild to me, man.
I mean, can Brennan catch the ball? Because honestly, he's probably more athletic than any of the tight ends on the team.
I mean, like, seriously.
If he can run around, I'd actually think it would be kind of funny for them to do it for a trick play. I don't think they'd do it this week, but at some point, why not live a little, get weird.
Dude, Dracovic being tight end is so strange. Like, he came out of that season at Boston College, and everybody's like, he's a real deal, transferred from Notre Dame, and Boston College had a good year that year with Zay Flowers, and then all of a sudden...
That was the COVID year, right?
It was either that or the year before, or year...
Yeah, I think it was COVID year.
And I just remember listening to the guys just rave about him. And I don't see it. And then he got hurt, and it's just... I don't know if he's back to the norm or never recovered or whatever it was, but man, he stinks. Like, he's bad.
Yeah. I think everyone forgets that the COVID year, there was basically no one in the stands, and that made life very easy for offenses. And so I just remember there being an offensive explosion, and then next year, everyone started kind of reverting back to the mean, and then now we are where we are, where it seems like this year, it seems like a lot of offenses are actually kind of bad. And not really doing as much, right? Like Ohio State struggling and things like that. So I just wonder if there was like an aberration there for a couple years, plus that COVID delay of seniors, and now everyone's coming back to reality. But I don't know. I just think it's just really funny that the Marcus Stone treatment has happened again, where you got the quarterback basically being turned into a tight end because he sucks like UB. Curious to see how that rolls, but that's just another guy that, I think you play behind some bad lines for a little bit, and then things just never kind of recover. It's just really hard to do. So, again, I just hope this offensive line stays healthy and MJ gets to be MJ, and I really hope on a QB sneak he doesn't injure his knee or something like that again, because I think this guy's got an X factor about him, which just makes the whole thing still really weird. I know it all made sense at the time to bring in Brennan, but, I think the way Dave was like, well, you get to recover from your knee injury, get healthy, learn, and you're not technically needed. And frankly, don't you think if Brennan Armstrong was 10% better, things would be okay? We would have won that game.
That's kind of makes me wonder, what if you grind it out and win 10-7 in that game?
Yeah.
Does Dave make the switch? I don't know. And it's crazy to think the margins are that thin.
Yeah. I think I feel like they looked at it like this. McMahon's coming back. 1. 2, Marshall, just Marshall's good, but Marshall's not like the most imposing G5 team that's ever existed. 3, Leonard gets hurt for Duke, so now you feel like that's a more winnable game bye week than you get Clemson. So like that's 3 weeks to really bring your guy along and get him humming. So I always felt like I thought the Marshall game was going to be the decision point. I thought it was going to be after the Marshall game. So I still think if they had won 10-7, especially, just looking at seeing the progression from Notre Dame down to UVA, down to Louisville, I feel like they probably were going to make a change anyways. I just think everything kind of lined up a lot better for them to be more comfortable with it.
I'm interested to see the offensive lines change with Dylan McMahon coming back, because despite his all-world reputation, I've not seen it from him, right? I've not seen the hype equal the production. Now, I did watch the offensive line the last few weeks and watched dudes just go untouched up the middle. And that speaks to a communication issue, and that typically stems from the center. So there should be some improvement there. But I wonder, I don't know, I still don't see it with McMahon. Everybody's like, he's an NFL prospect. We give him a bunch of NIL money to come back, and I just don't see it. But I want to see how that impacts the offensive line as a whole. Like maybe he's just better with the unit there.
Yeah. I feel like the best thing for a center is to not notice the center. Right? Yeah. And so I guess I would say I did not notice him in the UConn or Notre Dame games. Not the way like I noticed like that one time the Wake Forest linebacker just like pancaked him. And so, the NFL thing, like I always thought that second round evaluation thing was like, I thought that was just crazy, but whatever. He's got some intangibles, I guess, that folks like. I just think having him out there to call the protections, having Linden out there to also, just have a kind of, second center to bounce things off of right beside him, and the fact that you don't have McKay then playing guard, which is what Dave said this week. He was like, we tried that. We're not doing that. We're keeping Tim at tackle. So it really only leaves like one weak link.
I've messaged you on every platform. Move your mic closer, please. And I'm leaving this in. Yes, you're so far away and you sound bad. I've been trying to get your attention.
Well, you should have just said something.
I am. Check the chat, check your messages, check the pod chat. Yeah.
Well, the readings on the screen are really high, close to red, so that's why I was backing away from it.
No, don't worry about that. I need to hear you.
Well, yeah. I can't wait to listen to this episode now. Well, anyways, I was saying the one weaker link on the line right now then would be Carter. And so that's the question is, can we survive with, 4 out of 5 relatively reliable linemen? And will he improve now that McMahon's back beside him? I guess is really the question. Because it seemed like a lot of the shuffling was because of Carter.
And I know it's too soon to really judge an offensive line coach, but I feel like the fundamentals are missing. I think there's been some things you can see watching the games, whether it's Cooper's call-outs or just the passing of guys to the other guy and just the communication as a whole. I just feel like there's something missing, and I don't know if that's a talent issue or a coaching issue, but it's just something to watch for the future because I think there is some concern there. One of the other things that Dave mentioned during his during the Wolfpack Weekly is he started talking about other changes and then he stopped himself. What do you think the other changes? What do you think he meant by that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't actually pick up on that comment when he made it. I think they're probably dissatisfied with their ability to run the ball, so it maybe changes around that to try and get more productive. It kills him when he can't run the ball. and probably just some personnel choices, I would think, is what he was kind of getting after. I don't expect anything really different, though. Like, I feel like they're going to have to throw the ball a lot for the remainder of the season. So I'm not really sure schematically what could be different. Unless they do something with the wide receiver rotations.
That's what I was hoping he meant. I was hoping he meant you're going to start to see the ball get into Julian Gray's hands like it should have been. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's still so hard to believe that you watch him on all those kick returns and just be like, well, maybe why are we not getting the ball to this guy more often? I thought like it was really great. He was like, KC was open 13 times in this game, and he had, I think, 1 target.
Yeah.
And so he was like, Brendan wasn't seeing him, or by the time he did see him, it was too late because of the pass rush, or he wasn't the primary. So when he looked off the primary, by the time he looked at him, it was too late, all that stuff. So, I guess I took from that, I don't think Dave has a problem with the way the passing game is being schemed. I think his problem was just basically, how did he say it? It was the first time in his tenure that he had
it's
to
the first time I've ever benched a starter for performance, is what he said.
Which, and then he caveated it a little bit further, because then he talked about, sometimes there were games where a guy was off, and he said, like, Bailey Hockman in the UNC game, for example, and I was just like, well, that's... So what does that mean? Like, it's that Bailey Hockman was benched in-game, and that's not performance-related. Like, so my guess is, I feel like they probably saw MJ doing well in practice, and we're kind of like, well, why are we not going to roll with the guy that everyone... Like, how did they phrase it? It was like they said, like, they didn't say dispirited, right? But however he said it, right, that the attitudes were just better, right? In the process of healing or whatever. That just makes it sound like the team was kind of sitting there being like, yeah, we'll go play for Brennan, but we're going to play for MJ, which is kind of disappointing no matter what, right? But if you felt like that, why didn't you just make the change sooner? Yeah, you had a home game versus Louisville that you could have taken advantage of. And Dave even said that. He's like, well, now if we go out and play well, people are going to say you did it a game late. And he was like, well, I just, the team wasn't ready or something like that is what he said. Which, to me, makes it, again, sound like they were waiting until the offensive line was better off.
I guess, man, it all comes down to me to that last drive in the Louisville game. If they go down, if Armstrong, if he doesn't throw the ball, if he just runs it down the field and gets us back, gets us back the lead there, or wins that game, he's still the starter. And I think that's the concern for me. Is just, it's. I wonder what other positions are in a similar spot, right? Is it Lassane and Julian Gray that Lassane's playing, and everybody else can see what Julian Gray can do, but for some reason, one good thing keeps the guy playing. And we thought the same thing with Jordan Houston and Michael Allen. Michael Allen's clearly the better running back, but they kept Jordan Houston in for his blocking. So, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird approach to it, or weird to me. It just, I don't know. I mean, glad he's making changes, so I guess probably looking at the positives, but I wonder what else he meant when he was talking about other changes.
I mean, I do think if Brennan Armstrong, if we come back and either tie or win the game, I do think Dave would say, okay, well, the defense doesn't feel like their efforts are in vain and are going to mail it in. And maybe the offense would then have that kind of confidence of, well, this guy's done back-to-back game-winning drives for us. So maybe that kind of gets them resituated. So, I mean, it ended up the way it ended up. Like, I mean, you can go back and look at that game and say, well, everything's really different if that bullshit block running into the kicker isn't called, right? That's 15 yards and 2 more timeouts that we could have had. And it did feel like, look at how they called the plays at the UVA game in that final 40 seconds, right? Like, they were pretty calm, cool, and collected because they had those timeouts. They didn't have the timeouts this time, and they immediately looked frazzled. So, I don't know. There's a couple things that could have happened in that game that maybe we're delaying this conversation a week. But I think then you go to play against Marshall. My guess is MJ would have gotten a lot more reps in practice that week, and they would have probably given him a series, and then we would have had probably the VT game all over again from last year, right, where he probably comes in and gets things clicking, and then you got to play him. So, I don't know. In the end, this is not going to be a special season. We're not going to run the table. And so this one win is probably kind of meaningless in the end.
7-1 still on the board. Still on the board.
You can say it's on the board, but I mean, I've seen this team. Like, you're going to get a game or two where that defense doesn't look cohesive, and then it's going to be a long night. Like, I still think our offensive line is going to struggle with Clemson. They're going to struggle with Miami. They're probably going to struggle with North Carolina. Anyone that's got athletic people. So I think there's 3 more losses easily on the schedule, and we could still, frankly, lose this Marshall game. So I still think there's a lot of problems out there, especially with the run game.
Dave said, I watched the game 3 times alone, and then I went in the meeting with a list of things and asked the other offensive coaches. He's fixing it, man. Dave's fixing it.
I just imagine him sitting there with like a cigarette in the dark.
Yeah.
Or no, with his diffuser.
Yeah,
blasting.
Yeah. Mint eucalyptus coming out of his diffuser.
Yeah.
Watching the all-22 and the offensive line getting blown up. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm a little bit more optimistic. The defense is really good. It's still really good. And it's not your game. Your mic is pointing down. I see you looking up, and you're pointing.
What? I'm looking up like this because I'm thinking.
Yeah,
dude,
and it sounds
We're gonna
different.
play this episode. We're gonna play this episode back, and the volume is gonna sound like it sounds every freaking time. I guarantee it.
It does not. You can tell different every time you lean forward and talk down. It sounds better, like it's supposed to.
God. No one's even listening to this episode. Everyone has given up on the season. It's not a big deal. I'm not moving my freaking microphone.
I see that. It's very annoying.
Let it go. You don't hear me complain when I can't hear you.
That's because you like to talk.
That's true. I love talking.
Marshall's got a running back who's really good. I think the folks have picked us to lose that game. I wanted to clip the Cover 3 pod, but I did not. They were talking about it, and your boy Chip Patterson said, and I hadn't listened to...
Excuse me? My boy?
Yeah. He said that State should be on upset alert. This was earlier in the week, and then Bud Elliott was like, what are you talking about? Big Game Boomer picked Marshall to beat NC State. A couple others that I've seen, prognosticators on Twitter, have picked Marshall to beat NC State. I think State wins by 12 plus. I know it's a random number, but I got a feeling to be some kind of random thing happen.
What's the
defense is
spread
too
right now?
good. MJ's an upgrade. I think we'll be fine offensively, fine enough to not lose this game. Are you really concerned about? You just mentioned it. Are you really concerned with this game?
Yeah. I think there's a good chance we lose this game.
Why or how?
I always trust a team that's playing well and isn't suffering tons of injuries and at least knows what they do well. Now they're a running team, so honestly, if we do have a pulse of an offense, this should be more in our wheelhouse. But there were plenty of explosive plays still given up last game, screens that are overly effective. So teams know what Tony Gibson's doing, and they're calling effective plays against his aggression. So, they have a running back that's popped off a bunch. They have a wide receiver that's popped off a bunch, and they've got a quarterback that sounds like he's kind of YOLO in athletic. So I think this is going to be a closer game. The spread is 6.5 right now is what it looks like. So yeah, it's going to be really curious to see what the are people, what happens when MJ gets sacked or throws a pick early in the game. Is everyone going to turn on this? Everyone going to keep it positive? Are we going to stay behind the guys? So I don't know. I think it's just a good chance, a better chance than people realize that Marshall could win this game. Remember when Marshall came in, 4 years ago and had that one wide receiver that just popped off in that game?
Yeah, that guy was good. Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
game.
like I just something like that could happen, right? And you've got Sean Brown out for the first half of the game because of that bogus targeting call.
That's
So
disgusting. Yeah.
it's like I guess Boykin's back, so maybe it's going to work itself out that way. But it's just, I don't know, man. I could just see it. I mean, the ESPN prediction is 64% us. So, 1 out of 3 times, do they win the game? I could see that. And at least they know what they're doing. That's the concern is MJ's a little rusty or something unexpected happens and we're in a hole early. Like, should we win? Yes.
They've beaten 2 teams that are, I don't know how you would classify them, FBS level teams. Marshall has got a win over Virginia Tech. Okay. Who's, sorry, I said that wrong. The people they have beaten have got 2 collective wins for Power 5 schools, or not. I guess Louisiana's G5. So
Probably say the same about us.
I didn't think about that at all. But they've beaten Louisiana and Virginia Tech, who I think are. Wait, Marshall didn't beat Louisiana. Marshall's opponent beat Louisiana. Old ODU. They've beaten ODU, ECU, who stinks, Virginia Tech, and Albany. So they're not exactly murderer's row.
Bear with me, friend, because I'm now looking up VMI's record. All right.
No, VMI
UVA's 0-5, VMI's 2-3. And what is UConn? Aren't they winless?
Yeah, they are still winless.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, it's not a battle of the impressive resumes.
Fair enough.
The VT game was at home, right? And they were, I think they were favored either by 3 or 6 points
favored
in that game.
Yeah,
so,
they were.
So, take that into effect, right? We're favored, and frankly, like, Vegas has been pretty damn accurate on us this season. So yeah, I think, again, I think it will come down to if we let them have a busted play or two. Now, it sounds like they've been kind of playing things a little dangerous lately. They've needed some, like, fourth quarter heroics from that running back to win their games. So, again, like, we should win. I will be surprised if it's a blowout, right? That's like when you're saying 12 points. God, that's sad that 12 points is a blowout now.
It's not a one-score game. The old Dorn favorite.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and it'll be curious to see. Like, let's say we're up 2 scores going into the fourth quarter. Can you salt things out on the ground like you could with Brennan? Like, are we gonna risk MJ to a lot of hits? Because it seemed like we were kind of willing to treat Brennan Armstrong like the linebacker quarterback, right? Like, I really am curious to see how they will, like, don't you want to have MJ for the Duke game? Like, is that going to be going through their heads?
Here's a stat from somewhere else. I don't know where it came from. State is 33-29 with a losing turnover margin. It's pretty bad, but as you expect, you turn the ball over, you lose. Winning the turnover margin, State is 20-8, and 16-8 when the turnover margin is even. I mean, not terribly surprising, but that's when you're playing the one-score games. That's how thin your margins are.
Yeah, so is that 36-16 when you win it or tie it?
36, yeah.
Yeah. He said something earlier in the season like that they were like 80% or something like that when they won the turnover margin, so that makes sense.
Well, you're also giving yourself a few chances, right? You're playing ball control offense. You're keeping the games tight. All these things come into play there. Well, I thought it was interesting stats. I mean, it's not terribly surprising, but again,
I feel like
we all know that the line of success for NC State is very slim. So
yeah, it also felt like in other years when we would get those turnovers, we'd get points off of those turnovers, and that was the problem this year. Notre Dame game, pretty sure this game too, right? We had amazing field position from turnovers that I don't think yielded any points. So, like, that's been a big factor too. It's like we're just not doing anything with them when we're generating them, and so Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It just, you just think that any semblance of offense, for the most part, should get you to 7 wins, which is
Right.
right. So I hope it's there. I just feel like it's got to be better. Like just watching MJ when he knows where he's going with the ball, you just didn't see that this year from Brennan very often. And then you'd see him make like the wrong decision. Like there was a pass play in the game where they threw like a sideline route to Lassane, but underneath him, 10 yards back, was KC wide open. You know, it was just stuff like that where we were just making the wrong decisions. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to win like 38-13. I have no clue what to expect.
Yeah, that little Marshall running back's good, but so was the Louisville running back, and we held him in check. I just think it's one of those things that we do good, and again, being disruptive, making Marshall pass heavy is what's going to play out, more beneficial for us. And now the Charles Huff and Marshall coach is getting linked to the Michigan State job and other jobs that are starting to pop open. Start to see those distractions come around.
Well, then you'll see the distraction of Tony Gibson looking at Marshall.
Maybe. I don't think that's those secondary concerns. I don't think that distraction's legit at the moment.
Well, if it's a distraction for the Marshall coach, I think it's a distraction for Tony Gibson, because Tony Gibson is going to get lots of interest. And especially from a West Virginia
he is,
school.
yeah. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm saying like it's tertiary, right? Because Michigan State's got to hire Huff before the Marshall job comes open, right? So it's not even on the radar yet. Is what I'm saying. Like, it will be if he does hire him. But my point is that when a head coach's name starts getting thrown around for a job like that, then it starts to become a distraction. So anyway.
So I was trying to look real
from
quick.
Ed. I haven't listened to it yet, so we're all listening to it at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick before that is so the Marshall quarterback is 4-4 this year for touchdowns to interception ratio. So to your point, if you can make them one-dimensional, I do feel like we're going to see like 2 picks in this game on our side, right? It's just, does MJ throw 2 picks?
Yeah. All right, here's Ed. Wrong button.
Yep. I mean, that's a possibility. That's why I really just hope like this team plays completely different, a little bit of spark, whatever you want to call it. Because there is a very realistic chance now that you look at it and go, ooh, like we may not be bowl eligible, and that's gonna. I mean, I don't even want to think about the conversations you're having at that point. I don't know. God, Ed, why you got to bring me down? I don't agree with the take on the portal. I think you got to take the right folks in the portal, and not everyone in the portal is a 1-year guy anyways. And so I think the thing is if you take guys in the portal, like you should be taking them for a reason and playing them, like Rosner and Collins. Like I don't understand the thought process in bringing in 2 wide receivers and then not giving them tons of routes. Like that's where I get frustrated.
Yeah, I think roster management has got to be improved. I feel like we've seen a lot of gaping holes in the roster, which the portal can be beneficial for, right? You can rectify a lot of those situations in the portal, but you have to address them. And, for all the good stuff that Dave does, I feel like that the offensive roster has been, poorly handled. Yeah, right. We've talked about it before with all the rotations and all those questions around it. I don't know. Not the best.
Do you think, remember coming out of the UVA game that Dave said that we got to reduce the playbook, basically?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the change maybe he was talking about? Which is like...
I don't think so. He backpedaled on that one.
Yeah. And what other changes could there be, though? I mean, you going to play the Sebra twins at tight end? Like...
It's got to be positional, man. It's got to be, more Timmons, more Gray, more Collins.
Please, sweet Jesus.
Ant Smith, his coming out party. It's got to be something like that.
I will. I think I will probably have a heart attack if they roll out there and it's just Casey, Gray, Timmons, and Smith for just one 4-man rotation. I would die. And like, someone was bringing this up. I don't know if this was on one of our podcasts or in the chat or whatever, but like this emphasis on blocking and being able to block as a wide receiver, like, is that really what should be like the end all be all in your decision making? Like, is Keon listening out there because he quote can block? Like, instead of having someone out there that can catch and run the routes that you need as a wide receiver. Like, that's
let's be real. Nobody knows
those are
why
the
he's out
changes.
there. Yeah,
those are the
nobody
things.
knows why he's out there.
But like, even when they say, "Oh, he's a great blocker," like, is he? Because I see him like mailing it in on a lot of blocks as well. Like when he's deeper, making it slightly deeper route, he's still like not blocking dudes. And so, I don't know, man. Nothing would make me happier than to see Keon Lassane catch 2 touchdowns in this game and shut me up about it. And like, I just don't think that's going to happen as an outside receiver. And maybe I'll be proved wrong.
You're really down right now.
I am. Oh, on volume? Is this another microphone discussion?
No, it was not a microphone joke, but that is still true. No, it is your...
Dude, honestly, I thought we were... 2 days ago, if we did this, I would say we're losing.
Somebody kicked Will's puppy, and it's showing.
You watched the Louisville game live, right? Like,
yeah, but MJ.
I know. But what I was going to say is, at no point in time did I have my heart rate go up. Did I get agitated? I was so bored watching that game and had seen it play out so many times. It wasn't until after the game that I got mad or even excited or anything. So I just thought that game exemplified everything. And so I just have a very low expectation right now that MJ Morris is just going to come in and really change things. But if he does, I'll be excited and I'll have a better outlook for the season. But right now, like, I just think we could lose this game. And if you lose this game, you're not really winning any other game. Like, I think Wake Forest will somehow beat you in Winston-Salem. And I have no faith in us going up to Blacksburg and winning in that environment. So, yeah, it could be a really gross year if we don't get this shit under control. That's how I feel. And I don't think that's being down. I just think this team so far this year has conditioned that response.
Optimistic October has not hit Will's house.
Mm-mm. No, sir.
We're going 7-1 in the ACC, folks. Book it. And you can put that on the board.
If you go 7-1,
nobody's beating MJ.
If you go 7-1, we're probably not in Charlotte still, right?
Yeah, we are. Absolutely.
Why? If we're going 7-1, who's losing in front of us?
Clemson's already got 2, right? So it'd be FSU and us.
What are the crossovers? I guess that's actually the question. Does Louisville play FSU?
Like, Miami hasn't lost. Carolina hasn't lost. Louisville hasn't lost. So we're going to see.
But Miami and FSU will play, right?
Right, and Louisville and Miami play, or Louisville and FSU play, maybe.
I think you could have. Well, in your scenario, I think there's still a possibility for 4 7-1 teams, and we would probably not have the tiebreaker because the only tiebreaker we could have is with Louisville because we don't play the other. No, wait, we do play Miami.
We play Miami. Mm-hmm.
So in this scenario, we hand Miami a loss. Miami hands FSU a loss, and then Miami would hand Louisville. I don't know, man. I just don't. It's not happening, dude. This team is not that good. Like, this ain't. I don't even know which version of the team to think of.
Miami plays us, Florida State, Louisville back to back.
Okay, so they'll either be in or out basically after that stretch.
Yeah.
Because they'll either have their tiebreakers or they won't. I just can't believe how easy Louisville's schedule is. God.
Yeah, they got nobody. Do you think they beat Notre Dame this weekend?
No, I think they're going to lose that game, but they get hit with a tight end now from quarterback, and then they get Duke, who probably is not going to have Leonard back, and even if they do have him back, he's going to be like a shell, probably, because he's probably not going to be able to run. And then they got Virginia Tech, UVA, and then at Miami. So, dude.
And Miami goes to Chapel Hill.
Larrys.
Yeah.
Miami
has Clemson at Carolina, Clemson at home, us, Florida State, Louisville, at the end of the year.
We didn't even mention the Fighting Tez Walkers.
Oh, yeah, Tez Walker. They freed him. Free Tez Walker.
Oh, my gosh.
Woohoo. Woohoo.
Their argument basically says that the NCAA can't restrict anyone from playing because you're impacting their ability to earn, and that it's against state and federal laws. So I guess we're going to have free reign in the portal again. Thanks a lot, guys. It's going to be great when he twists his ankle.
Yeah, his ability to play should not equate to his ability to earn, right? Because you're not paid to play.
The argument this AG was making on this radio show today was basically he was using this argument where like fast food chains were saying that workers couldn't go work across the street for higher pay, and that was illegal. And so then the person on the radio was like, so are you saying he's an employee? And the guy was like, oh. And then the best part was afterwards he goes, okay, well, there's other players that are going to have issues like this in the future. Are you going to go fight for them as well with the NCAA? And then he started backpedaling there too and being like, well, I mean, if certain things, blah, 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 then, I mean, we'll have to consider it. And I was just like, oh my God, like, here we go. The UNC lawyer network wins again, and then basically says, we're not going to help anyone else.
That's exactly what happened. They sent an intent to sue, and the NCAA caved. That's simple as that. They claimed Carolina withheld information. Look, come on, get out of here with that nonsense. They're both petty idiots, and it's whatever. It's stupid that it got down to this point. Whatever side you're on, stupid.
I can't wait for everyone to shade all this coverage over Tez Walker, and then he has some like blase season, and then we have to hear how he was screwed. That's the worst part. Is it had been about 2 weeks where I didn't have to see a freaking Tez Walker mention on my Twitter timeline or anything, and now we're just going to have to hear about it for the next 4 months, it seems, and then if he doesn't play well, it's going to be, oh, his draft stock was hurt, blah, blah, blah. Ugh.
The other one that came out today was Andrew Carter did an article on why NC State changed his position, and he got a quote from Randy Woodson that was very similar to ours. NCSU Chancellor Woodson refuses to detail any reasoning behind his decision with a quote, "I'm not going to say anything."
Good for him.
Meaning Woodson got fat checks somewhere from somebody, and I mean, just nonsense. I'm not going to relive history and beat that dead horse any more than I already have.
I just don't understand why they want
Chancellor Woodson and his support of NC State athletics is well known. So
what's the follow up that he's afraid of, right? Like if he comes out and says, "Yeah, we did it for more money." And we did the calculus and realized it has really no impact on whether or not Clemson or Florida State or UNC sticks around. So why wouldn't we get $3 or $4 more million per year? What is he afraid of? The next question is going to be, what are you going to do with that money? Like,
I don't know.
It's just like in the end, it's like I think it's kind of silly when people are like, oh, it's NC State's fault. Like there were 12 others that voted too, or 11, or whatever the number was, right? And so, like, in the end, I don't care. I think it's going to be funny because no one's really talked about it. What does this do for the scheduling format now? Like, we just were going to be able to play everybody, twice every 2 years, basically? Or, twice in 4 years, you're going to actually get to play the entire conference. So, is the schedule thrown out? Like, how does this work? If you're going to make them have all these road games over here, I'm just, are we going to have divisions again? Are we going to get pods?
Yeah. I can't read the rest of the article, but somebody in the pod chat, it's behind the paywalls.
Not good.
Somebody in the pod chat said, It's so typical for our administration to behave as they would know what they're doing. We should all just shut up about it while they are decades of evidence that suggests they have no clue. I was like, that's perfectly said. That's exactly it. It's just the constant push and pull of college athletics, but I feel like it's NC State athletics, in a nutshell. There, it's like, well, trust us, we know what we're doing. Yeah, we know what we're doing, making the right decisions.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask why the football operations budget got cut like $200,000 or whatever it was this year.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to understand why we spend the way we spend our money, and I think a little bit of a microscope on the athletic department decisions would be interesting, because I don't understand why, for example, UNC has a budget that has more expenses than we do for recruiting and football operations. Like, why are we not trying to win more? Why are we not spending money where it gets the biggest return? Like, it just seems like it's still like the same folks back there that are patting themselves on the back for running like a poverty mash unit when you don't have to be. Yeah,
you should be happy with mediocre. That's basically what they tell us when they say stuff like this. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Is it really that hard to then kind of like start drawing the line and being like, well, did we make bad decisions in roster management and construction of the football team because we've decided to just, I'm guessing if there's a $200,000 budget cut, that means probably 3, 4, 5 people, maybe more, were just removed from staff, right? That's people that could be helping us win more games. Like,
probably goes to Boo's 1 point whatever he's making.
Oh my God.
Or Randy's whatever he's making. Absurd amount of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, donate more, give more. Yeah.
It just means more if you give to Randy.
Yeah, you're a bad fan. Bad fan. Anyway, all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to take the turn, but that Randy thing always.
Randy just gets you in a bad mood.
He does. He really does. Yeah. The more I hear, the more I know, the worse I feel about that situation.
See, the crazy thing is the guy I knew that knew Randy, his dad was the AD at Purdue, and he said that Randy was all about the power of football and revenue sports and bringing money in through those. And so I would have assumed that he was going to keep pushing then on athletic performance and success. But instead, it just seems like we're kind of in this mode of like, well, let's just like not spend money. And if you want to say like we're not spending money because we think we're going to have to pay athletes, and so we got to rebuild the chest, and we were worried coming out of COVID, well, like, fine. I would take it if you would just like publicly admit what's going on. But instead, you're told that we suck as fans, and no one gives money to the NIL, and we're cutting budgets and things like that. And you're like, well, why would I give you money then? Like, you're not investing in football. Why am I going to invest further? Like, you're sending conflicting messages to us. All the while you're getting new scoreboards and selling out for, like, it seems like a decade under Dave Doran, and yet you don't have enough money. I don't know.
Why does, and this is, I don't know, way off the rails, but why does the chancellor, whose responsibility is academics and the university, have any input over athletics? And I mean, I get it, right? Because he's the boss of the university, but there's a clear differential between the two components of the university, the athletics arm and then the rest of the academics arm. It's silly to me that there's a dictator above all that.
Like,
the goals are very contrasting, and for a lot of people, right? Like, I'm trying to build the endowment. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to allocate all this money to research and academics, and then here's a slice of cheese for your football team.
But don't you think there's a correlation between on-field success and donations in general to a university?
I agree. I think the smart folks get that. And it's not like you're just giving money to the football program, you're investing in the return, right? It's been well documented, the amount of like application increases, the donation increases that Clemson had when they won the national title.
Yeah.
Right.
And
other
SMU.
Yeah, or other schools
SMU
have
just
done that.
coming into the ACC has generated a massive amount of not just applications but investments into the program. So, to me, it's just I feel like in football in particular, I guess you could say the same for basketball. It's easier to get to that 8 to 9 to 10 range. It's very hard to become like a championship caliber team. But I feel like $1 million here, $1 million there gets you returns that then are going to enable an opportunity to have a championship run. So, it's just confusing to me that they would be cutting back on a football budget at all at this time when that is the biggest moneymaker. And, I don't know, man. I could not care less about the Director's Cup. And I wouldn't care if every program outside of football and basketball was a bottom feeder. Sorry, baseball fans. But, I would just rather be good at the sports that dominate the calendar for, August and September to March. And then you just give me that break. I don't care what the teams do otherwise. So, why are we not spending more money towards football? Why are we not spending a ton of money in basketball? There should be nothing holding back those sports. And instead, I think they're just treating it those bring in the ACC media money, and we're just going to do the least amount we have to so we get a bigger gap in cost versus revenues, and we'll just pocket the money. Because I don't know what else you're doing with it.
Yeah, it's weird. NC State has been awarded $39.4 million from the Department of Defense to lead a new regional semiconductor innovation hub.
Nice.
More money.
39 million or billion?
Million. Billion? Yeah.
Gosh, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. We might have some football investment there. Yeah. No, $39.4 million from the Department of Defense. I mean, more money coming in. But donate.
And I guess the final point with the Woodson thing is just you could be campaigning for the endowment for those additions that we keep getting there to be towards athletics. So, it's I'm just surprised that there's not an active push there to be let's try to get people donating more in general if that's going to enable these things. But I don't know, man. It's just so tough.
I'll leave it at this. There's a lot of information that we don't know, right? Yeah. What happened, why, any of that stuff. But also, the lack of transparency is going to let people form their own narratives, right? And I start to piece parts of the puzzle together and come up to my own conclusions rather than getting communication from administration and leadership. And this applies to pretty much anything NC State, right? Unless they're asking for your money, the communication and transparency is not there. And I think that's a disservice to the community. And, that's how we come up with our own narratives from that. When you hear information and then you get pieces like that and you start putting them together. And if they don't want us to make these conclusions, then let's be a little bit more transparent. You're asking folks for their money and, for them to be committed to helping the university, blah, blah, blah. Let's have some transparency on decision making. It doesn't hurt. You can communicate that. I think good leaders communicate. And I think that's where State has been in a big deficit. But
yeah. Especially when it's the further you get away from graduating, right? It's you got to have a better excuse for me to keep shelling out money, right? And so, I've gotten to the point where I'm not taking the phone calls from the people calling about the endowment, right? I might take a call about athletics, right? So, I don't know, man. The whole thing is just so annoying. There's so much passion here, and it's just, to your point, being told to shut up and not ask questions is really annoying.
Yep. All right, we'll leave it on that high note. I think State's got Marshall tomorrow at 2 p.m. Again, sorry for the late podcast.
Whatever. I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah, they don't. They just want to listen to us
complain. No, I mean, it's Marshall. I just feel
that's true. That's part
in general, kind of I think everyone just wants to see MJ, and the opponent does not matter at this point.
Yeah, I just want to see MJ, so I agree. Yeah. As always, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with regular scheduled time and Will's microphone closer to his face.
Yeah,
so
I swear to God, I can't wait I'm going to fire this up the second it comes in the feed. And I'm going to go to the 25-minute mark and hear how inaudible I am.
All right, so speak now. Now get a little closer and say bye to everybody, and then listen to the difference. Will's feeling feisty. All right, folks, have a good one. Go Pack.
Good night.